if you go to chapter 13 of Vayikra, it's the start of the whole parsha. The whole it's such a complicated parsha. The parsha starts out with the birth of a child, and then it moves on to that into this whole story of the tzarat, of this affliction of leprosy, but it's not really leprosy because it's not really a physical thing. It's a spiritual malady that happens, and it goes through all the different what happens, what you have to do. So if you get a certain type of lesion of some sort, and there's a whole discussion of what happens. But what I want to look at is to go from the beginning of verse number 9. It says the following. So if it's a negatras kiyet ba'adam, if there's the person has this tzarat, b'uvay kohen, you bring it to the kohen. So if there's this white lesion, okay, and it's changed the hair to white, or there's some type of live flesh within the white, so then the person is considered to be tameh because there is all this white. It's called ora nega. Says, but then if you look in verse number 12, and this is really where the focus is, if the taras erupts in the skin, and the taras covers the entire skin of the affliction, from his head to his feet, wherever the eyes of the kohen can see, the kohen shall look, and behold, the affliction has covered his entire flesh. Then he shall declare the affliction to be pure, having turned completely white, it is pure. So what the difficulty here is that when it doesn't cover the whole body, so then it is tameh, right? It's impure. When it does cover the whole body, then it's tahor. So it seems to be a little bit counterintuitive. Okay, so let's try and understand that how this works. So Rav Wolbe says, firstly, he says that it seems that there's an enigmatic spiritual law. It's clear from Chazal that we can extrapolate this concept to other areas of our lives. So what in our lives, there must be something where when it's not completely white, or it's not completely covered, it's problematic. But when it is completely covered, okay, it's fine. Okay, you're here, yeah. Okay, so the Rav Pinkus brings. He says, you got to remember, we've just come out of Pesach. And in Pesach, we learned about, so what's white? The word white in Hebrew is Lavan. So he says, if we didn't take Pesach and learn lessons out of Pesach for our lives, then we'll never understand this thing. Okay? So let's try and understand. So where do we find Lavan in the Haggadah? It's simple. Lavan ha'arami. Okay? Now listen to what he says. It's an amazing thing. He says here, the name of a person, Shmo shel Adam Moreh al Mahuto. The name of a person is indicative of them, of who they are. We know that, right? We Chazal say, that this whole thing, the mother looks at the child and he has this Ruach HaKodesh. There's something about the name. So this guy's name was Lavan. So that Lavan, the name Lavan, therefore, is indicative of who the person is. Okay?
But it's quite weird because white is usually pure. White, you actually.
Well, yes, why is it pure?
So it's an angel.
There's nothing. There's no blemish on white.
Yeah.
Right?
But I mean, white is actually made up of.
So if you really look at it, white is a composite of all the colors. Okay? But when you see it, it's holistically, it's pure. And the minute you drop a color onto white, it ruins the white. It's an amazing concept, by the way, like how that works. But he says,
he was completely the opposite.
Thank you. So let's understand. That's what we got to understand. When we can understand that, we might be able to understand this. It's the complete opposite of Lavan, but let's understand Lavan, and then we can understand this. So says Rav Pinkus, Latzeva halavan ein shum atzmiut. There's nothing like definitive about the color white. White is white. It's just white. It doesn't have anything into it. right? Hu chelek legamre bli shum gavan. It has no independent identity, and therefore that is gam kein Lavan Arami, Lavan hu haya ramai gamur patachlit. He says Lavan was 100% evil, 100% evil. Okay, he had nothing in him that was in the kudah of emes at all. So we always, as you say, we always relate to Lavan as this purity, but what it really means it's a holistically nothingness. Now it's parav. Lavan is parav. Either it's nothingness. So therefore, in this case of Lavan, yeah, it's 100% evil, right? But it presents itself holistically. That's what he wants to say. Let's just go with me. So he says, yeah, where do we see that? We see that in such a profound space. What happens is Lavan says to remember he's running after Yaakov and the children, and he says when he catches them, Yaakov says, "What did I do to you? I did nothing. I've taken nothing from you, right? Absolutely nothing." And Lavan says to him, "I want you to remember everything is mine, and I gave you everything." That's what Lavan says. But in halakha, when a person, it's called the schar of Maaseh Yadayim. That when a person works, the most powerful way that you can acquire something is by doing it with your hands. Okay? So when you develop something, you acquire it. Like the person who made this table, even if they had stolen the wood, I'm not saying they stole it, okay? Even if they had stolen the wood, okay, the fact that they developed the table and they cut it and they did things makes it theirs. They still have to repay the person that they took the wood from. But the fact is that they did something that makes it theirs. So for example, if you buy...
steal a car and then scratch it.
So, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking more like on a higher level of Kedusha. So for example, according to many poskim, let's say you buy yourself a toaster. Okay? How do you tovel a toaster?
You can't go.
Okay? So you can't tovel a toaster.
This is very relevant.
Although some do. Some do tovel a toaster. Okay? But some don't. I mean, there's major machlokas amongst the poskim. Okay? But do you have to tovel a toaster? Yes or no? That's a different discussion. But for those who say you do, there's a way out of it. Right? What's the way out of it? You can take it apart to a certain degree and then put it back together. So you're just, if Harley can do it, or you. Okay, right? So if you're able to do that and put it back together, your Maaseh Yadayim have recreated this thing. It's now yours.
If it's like a tray at the bottom, if you slide out, can you slide it out?
No, that's not undoing it. You have to actually undo it.
Like unscrew something.
Unscrew something. You don't have to worry about toveling your toaster so much. But that's not the point. The point is, so what happens where Lavan says to Yaakov, right? Everything is mine. It's absolute rubbish. It's pure sheker. Because the fact is that Yaakov is the one that made him wealthy by looking after the animals and everything. And all of that gives him the acquisition. So says Rav Pinkus, if that's the case, this guy is such an absolute liar. He is pure sheker. So how come out of him comes Leah, Rachel, and the entire Jewish nation?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
It's an unbelievable question. The pureness of his sheker leads to the pureness of Am Yisrael, which is quite an unbelievable question.
Maybe that's why he's called Lavan.
Why?
His name is because there has to be some purity. If he's pure evil, so at least his name gives the purity.
Oh, okay. So it says Rav Pinkus.
Isn't that also a thing where like the animal that chew the cat, or they've got split but they don't chew the cat. So it's like you think they're kosher, but they're not. So like his name could represent that he's pure because it's Lavan or there's that.
Right. Okay.
But actually he's masking all the other stuff that.
Okay. I thought you were going to go on another track, because the ones that are.
You're getting excited.
I was getting so excited. I mean, I like what you're saying, but the ones that have got a siman of kashrut, right? We get excited. Maybe they're kosher.
Yeah.
And you get disappointed they're not.
Yeah.
But they're still like, maybe it's okay because at least they've got one kosher sign.
Yeah.
right? What maybe one. So he says the following. How could it be that such kedusha? He says, "Ki kol davar sheker." Let's listen to those words. It's amazing. Kol davar sheker she'ein omrim bo katzat emet b'tichlato ein mitkayem b'sofo. Any sheker that there is not some type of truth that's mixed in with it, okay, will never last. So sheker that's got a little bit of truth has a certain level of sustainability. But when it's got no truth in it, there's zero sustainability.
I'm confused.
Okay, hold on, let me get to it again. Therefore, Lavan Arami was kulo sheker. The whiteness is indicative of the holistic person. He was holistically disgusting. He had no semblance of something nice whatsoever. That's unbelievable, because it means you have to understand, Lavan is the brother of Rivka, right? She isn't touched by him. She's completely not infected by Lavan. He's the father of Rachel and Leah. They are not impacted by him. He is total, absolute evil, incarnate. That's why it's so profound what we say at the Seder. Paro wasn't total evil. He was a bad guy, right? Lavan was totally evil. Lavan bikesh la'akoret hakol. He wanted to uproot everything, right? So Lavan is totally evil. The lo achiza or tarovet adam klal. There's nothing can attach itself to Lavan. Harahu mufka me'ametziut legamre. Because he was totally evil, he had nothing good about him, right? What happens is when he disappears from the scene, there's nothing left of him. Nothing at all. Who klal lo kayam. He never ever sustains it. He sustains himself in us. We keep him alive because we need to learn the lesson.
Yeah,
we're trying to learn us.
Yeah, every year on Pesach.
Correct.
So we
But
are keeping him there.
But why? In order to learn the lesson, that even out of purity in a negative sense, okay, out of pure negativity can come greatness. Why? That's why the kedusha could come out of him. Ein ben David ba ad shetafach kol hamalchut leminut. Ma'ikra kula hafach lavan tahoru. Says, what does it mean? It says that if you look at where Mashiach comes from, where does Mashiach come from?
Convert.
Number one, a convert. Where else?
David. I don't know what you are.
I'm asking you, I'm going to unmute you ladies so you can, if you want to, you can answer. Where does Mashiach come from? Let's look at the two sources of Mashiach. Go back. Go all the way back to Mashiach. Where did Mashiach start? Mashiach started.
No, it was Yehuda and Tamar.
Tamar, correct. Yehuda and Tamar is the strangest story in the whole of Tanakh, right? You've got Yehuda. Yehuda is the king of the Jewish people. He's the ultimate leader. What does he do? He has this relationship with this harlot on the side of the road. Okay? So how can that be Mashiach? You think that's disgusting. That's a terrible kind of relationship. It's a strange relationship. And it's his son's wife. I mean, okay, you should see your face. Remember that. Guys, Yehuda is having an affair with his late son's wife. Two late son's wives, right? He's having this relationship with her. Out of that comes Peretz. 1 second, guys.
It is behind
you. Peretz is the child that comes out of that relationship, and Peretz ultimately is the son, is the father of Boaz, who's the grandfather of David HaMelech. That's on the one side, right? On the other side is Ruth, who comes from Moab. Where did Moab come from? Moab comes from the relationship between Lot and his daughter. So you've got Kathy's face is the best to see it, right? So it's like grim. There's depraved stuff going on here. Is that worse than Lavan? Surely it's worse than Lavan. No, it's not. You know why? Because if it was worse than Lavan, it wouldn't happen. But what about that is that there's a smattering of emes there. Even the
What
daughters
did
of Lot,
Lavan
even
actually
the daughters of Lot, right? Exactly. I wish I could mute you guys also. Right? Even the daughters of Lot, whilst it was a little bit grim in what they wanted to do, right? There was a l'shem shamayim to it.
Yeah.
So it has a certain level of emes. Therefore, there's a kiyum, right? Yehuda Tamar did it because she wanted to ensure that the seed of Yehuda would continue. She understood that. Right?
Yehuda only had 2 sons, obviously. Then.
And he had another one, Shelah, but that we don't know about. He was a youngster, he was a little kid. Okay. So it's all because it has a smattering of emes to it, therefore
it's all like
it's going to continue.
It's all that, like all these illicit relationships.
Exactly.
All that, like, stuff.
Exactly.
Very, and yet it's like all halacha, and it's all like brings out the.
Correct.
So weird.
It's so crazy. So kulo hafach lavan. It's got to be when it's got to all be changed over. He says shekol tuma sheyesh la ezu achiza b'kedusha. Anytime that there's tuma, there is a certain level of kedusha in it. Yesh la metzias kayemes v'iyevshar yetzeh min davar kadosh. Says right. It's got therefore the tuma will maintain itself, and it's impossible for something kadosh to come out of it. Aval kasher tuma mesholelet kol ha'achiza klo hafach lavan. He says, however, look what happens to this relationship. Peretz, Moav. Peretz and Moav. Peretz becomes Boaz. Who's Boaz? Do you want to take it?
Cody.
Peretz goes into Boaz. Who's Boaz? Boaz is the head of the Sanhedrin of the time. So he changed that all the tumah that was in that relationship is undone, and he becomes pure. Look what happens. Moav is Ruth. Ruth becomes the pure, the most absolute example of the Gioret Kodesh, right? So that kulo hafach lavan, everything changes to be lavan, meaning to be completely pure. There's no tumah in it, and it's pure kedusha, and so therefore, because it's completely pure in such a situation, there's the ability for that now to completely white, as he says here, the ability now for it to take on kedusha. So that's what happens when a person starts off with a little bit of tzarat, and at the same time has no tzarat. It's a mixture of the two. It's got to be tameh, because the tumah overpowers even the good. But the minute it's complete and total, so then it's like a clean slate, and it can once again start with tahara, which I think is quite a very powerful and important thing for us to understand. Okay. Pleasure. Okay, so you happy with that? Okay, so then I just want to go on to something where we understand that this whole thing about Tzarat is about what we call Lashon Hara, right?
Right.
So what's Lashon Hara? You know that I'm not asking you for what Lashon Hara is. So you're thinking about the question.
No.
Okay. What's Lashon Hara, guys?
Because it's not just speaking about somebody.
Correct. Because if it was only that, so then it's easy.
Yeah.
God speak Lashon Hara.
Exactly.
So all the Balei Musa say Lashon Hara is not just Lashon Hara speaking about others. You can unmute yourself. I've allowed you to. Right?
we have?
Okay. Is that Lashon Hara is just using language or using speech badly.
Yeah.
Correctly.
Using speech badly. So comes along Rabbi Freinfeld and he says the following. Okay, he tells the story of Rav Simcha Zissel of Kelm. Rav Simcha Zissel of Kelm was one of the great Balei Musa. So he's sitting with one of his Talmidim, Reb Leizer. He was also one of the great Balei Musa. Became great because of this story.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there together with this farmer. In the old days, they were like, all these there. So they're sitting together with this farmer and his wife, and they're talking about the livestock and the chickens and the whole thing. And Reb Leizer gets bored and he starts learning from his sefer. And Rav Simcha Zissel is busy speaking to the farmer and his wife. Eventually, the farmer and the wife, they got to go do what they have to do. And Rav Simcha Zissel turns to Rav Leizer and he says to him, "You're a ganef." He says, "What do you mean I'm a ganef?" He says, "You're a ganef and a gazlan." He says, "How can you say that? You're calling me a thief. What have I done?" He says, we come here into these people. They think we're great people. And because they think we're great people, they show us their hospitality. And they show us that, they give us the little that they have. And all they want from us is one thing, to be interested in them and to show them friendliness and to be kind to them. And what do? You come in here and you sit and you read your book. He says, that's stealing from them. That's stealing their time. So obviously, Rav Simcha Zissel also felt, I wanted to learn Torah, but he understood, says that the responsibility in every situation. He understood that it was responsibility at this point in time to talk about the cows and the chickens, which is quite a powerful story. Huh? Yeah. It's an unbelievably powerful story. But then Rav Wolbe tells another story. So that's one thing. The one thing about the Lashon Hara, meaning that you don't even speak. He didn't say anything. But he didn't use his words in the right space. That's Lashon Hara in and of itself. I think it's like mind-blowing. Yeah. Rav Wolbe tells the story as the following. He says that people sometimes say things like the first thing that come into their heads. We all do that sometimes. We have these gut things that we say, which sometimes are a little bit silly. And in doing that, they inflict torture and pain. They get angry. They say this, they get upset, they say that. It doesn't occur to them to have a responsibility to say things. And then he tells the story. It's actually quite a sad story. He says this woman comes to his house. She's brokenhearted. So he says, I don't understand why you're brokenhearted. You just moved into a beautiful new house. Beautiful new house. She just bought a new house. Why are you so upset? She says, I'm so upset because my best friend came to my house. And she told me how beautiful my house was. But she said, yeah, but some of the rooms are quite small, interestingly. Imagine that. Your best friend, right? Because what? Your best friend, you can say, you can be open, you can be straight, right? Says, right, so the Gemara says, the Gemara in Ksuvas says that when a person buys something that they just purchased, when a person shows you something that they just bought, right? What are you supposed to do? You have to praise. Even if it's a piece of rubbish. They invested their time, money, effort, stupidity, whatever it is, in buying this thing, right? They've brought it. So how does it help for you to say that it's not nice? It's like when the bobber makes the jersey for the child, where the one arm's a bit longer than the other, or doesn't like it, they don't like it. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to wear it when bobber comes, and as soon as bobber leaves, you can take it off, right? Why? Because you got to make them feel good. So he says, you want to become Kodesh? You want to become holy? Okay? You want to elevate and sanctify your life? Right? Become a karbanit. What's a karbanit? He's talking to the women, right? A karban is a captain. Is the person who sails the ship. Says why? You've got to become the captain of your life, the captain of your existence. You have to know that wherever you go, whatever you do, whatever you say, you're responsible. And you have to accept the responsibility and live by it. And I think that's a powerful, powerful lesson. He says that speaking to another person is a tremendous responsibility. You're responsible for how you speak to your wife, your husband, your children. The big tzaddikim knew this. It was amazing how they minded their speech, how their speech was refined like crystal clear spring water. That's how you become Kodesh. The more you understand, appreciate, and live by your responsibilities, the closer you come to being a Kodesh. See yourself as the captain of your life. Responsibility lies within you. And that's what Lashon Hara is. Lashon Hara is not speaking bad about people. Lashon Hara is saying, I can speak about another person, right? And there's no responsibility in that. That's the issue in Lashon Hara. It's not like a thing, well,
Lashon Hara is being responsible for
your speech. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that is really the most powerful space of this kind of thing where we forget that Lashon Hara is not about, we think Lashon Hara is speaking about people, but Lashon Hara really is not controlling oneself. And Rabbi Tatz says, he says that now I want to go back to the beginning of the parasha. Right at the beginning of the parasha speaks about a woman giving birth, and then it speaks about Sarat. Yeah. So the question is, why does it contrast the two? if you see right at the beginning, it speaks about birth and the tumah of birth, and then it speaks about getting tzarat. So Rabbi Tet says a beautiful thing. He says, we know about the Hasidim. The Hasidim wear a gartel. Why do they wear a gartel when they daven? Because it divides the top and the bottom half. It's a halacha. Halacha is that when a man davens, he's got to divide the top and the bottom. So, yes, exactly, right? You've got to divide. So why? Why is that so important? He says, because we need to understand the bottom half, the product of the bottom half is a child. The product of the top half, which is your head, are your words. It's powerful, right? And both of them are creations. Which one is a more important creation? How's that for a powerful question?
Yeah.
Like you think the children are the most important things that we can create. He says, no. The most important things in the world that you can create are your words. Because when you create words, you become a teacher. I can either teach you something positive, a nice idea.
You can have one child or you can have 10 children.
Exactly.
And you can, if your words are not, or your thoughts are not, whatever, pure.
It's powerful that, huh? So that the words that you create become the things we wear, because, and we know that the way Chazal put it is that your teacher is more important than your parents. So for example, a person is the person who teaches you most of the Torah, called your Rebbe, and your parent are drowning in the sea. That's how they present it. So who do you have to save? How's that for a question? Right? So it's kibbud avayim or kibbud rabo.
Yeah.
So the halacha is that you have to save your Rebbe. Comes first before your parent. Why? Because your parent brings you into this world, and your Rebbe brings you into the world to come. Right? Because the teacher has a much more profound impact because of the words that they use. And says Rabbi Tatz, that's the connection, is that two creative spaces are being presented here, both of which have to come with the most powerful of thoughts. However, when you create a child, yes, there has to be thought in that. And I'll tell you a mind-boggling thing. The Kli Yakar, just by the way, the Kli Yakar says that if you look at the Aseret HaDibrot, I don't know if I ever told you this. In the Aseret HaDibrot, you have kibbud avayim on the one side, right? The 5 and the 5, and they each correspond to each other. So on the one side, you had kibbud avayim, and on the other side, corresponding to it is lo tachmod, that you're not allowed to covet another person's wife or husband or anything that they have. So it says the Kli Yakar, what's the connection? It's bizarre. Understand that you shouldn't kill is connected to Hashem's presence. But what's the connection to this? He says very simple. When a husband and wife are together, if one of them, listen to this, guys, is thinking about somebody else at the time of conception, the child will be confused as to who their real parent is and will issue with the kibbud avayim. Isn't that mind-boggling? So therefore, he says, Rabbi Tatz, is that while at the difference with a child and with and with the words that we say is that the child you created, okay, that's a very esoteric concept, but then you have to look after it and you have to nurture it. But the difference with words is that you can't nurture words once they've been created. Words are so much more powerful. Words have to be nurtured before they are created, not after they're created. And therefore, that's what is going on here. Why do you get the impact of the Lashon Hora, whatever Lashon Hora is, in its most widest term? The impact of Lashon Hora is on your physical body because you didn't nurture it before you put it out. And that's the biggest issue here. And so therefore you're put into a space where you're totally on your own. And you've got to start thinking about things all on your own. You've got to think about how you say things, where you say things, all of those things, in order that the next words that you speak, okay, are not going to be words that are unthought of or unnurtured. So I thought I would share that with you. And have a beautiful Shabbos, guys. It's lovely to see you guys. Please God, guys, I think we're going to go back onto campus from next week, Bezrat Hashem. And we'd love you to join us. We'll be social distant and everything that you need. So it would be, if you can, it'd be lovely to see you.
Can we still Zoom though?
Yeah, we'll still Zoom. Okay. God bless.